Welcome to The Explainer. Now, if you're studying for your AQA A-Level in psychology, you have definitely heard this name before. Today, we're going to be breaking down a big one, Eysenck's theory of the criminal personality.
So let's just jump right in with the massive question at the heart of all this. Are criminals born that way, or are they made? Is it all about their environment, or could there be something hardwired right into their personality?
Okay, first things first. We have to get a really solid grip on the core of Hans Eysenck's theory. This is your foundation, the stuff you absolutely have to know to nail those all-important AO1 description marks.
Now, Eysenck's big idea was, well, it was pretty radical for its time. He basically argued that our personality isn't just something we pick up along the way. Nope. He said it's fundamentally rooted in our biology, in the very specific wiring of our nervous system.
So the first personality dimension is extroversion. Eysenck believed that extroverts have what he called an under-aroused nervous system. A great way to think about it is like radio that's turned down way too low. They're constantly looking for excitement and stimulation just to feel, well, normal. And that's what can lead to all that risk-taking and thrill-seeking behavior.
Next on the list is neuroticism, and this one is all about emotional stability. Someone who scores high on this trait has a hyperreactive nervous system. What that means is they're much more likely to be anxious and can be super quick to anger, making their reactions really unpredictable, especially when they're under pressure.
And the final piece of this puzzle is psychoticism. Now, it's really important to get this straight. This is not about being clinically psychotic. For Eysenck, it was a personality trait, a tendency towards being cold, aggressive, and lacking empathy, which he connected to higher levels of hormones like testosterone.
So, here it is, the main event. According to Eysenck, the criminal personality isn't just one of these things on its own. It's the very specific combination of scoring high on all three: high extroversion, high neuroticism, and high psychoticism.
But hang on, how does this personality profile actually lead to committing crimes? Well, Eysenck's answer was something he called conditioning failure. See, most of us learn the rules of society as kids because getting punished makes us anxious, and we learn to avoid whatever got us punished. But for the criminal personality, that whole process just breaks. As you can see, the high extroverts don't really fear punishment. Their under-aroused system just doesn't register it as a big deal. And meanwhile, the high neurotics have such intense emotional reactions that the lesson itself just gets completely lost in all that chaos.
All right, we've got the AO1 stuff down. So now let's shift gears and move into AO2. This is where we start applying the theory and connecting it to other areas of psychology.
This right here is a perfect example of how you can apply the theory. Just picture a young repeat offender. Think about their behaviors, like dangerous driving just for the thrill of it. That's your extroversion. Sudden, aggressive outbursts, that's neuroticism. And a cold, chilling disregard for their victims, that's psychoticism. It all maps perfectly onto Eysenck's high E, N, and P profile.
And here's where the theory becomes so useful for making those links in your exam. It's like a fantastic bridge to the purely biological explanations of crime. So while other theories might look straight at a so-called criminal gene, like MAOA, Eysenck actually shows how biology could lead to crime by shaping the personality first. It's the missing link.
It also throws a really interesting challenge to the classic behaviorist approach. You see, behaviorism kind of suggests that we all learn from rewards and punishments in exactly the same way. But Eysenck, he says not so fast. He argues that our biological makeup, our personality, is the key factor that decides just how well we can be conditioned in the first place.
Okay, it's time for the critical analysis. Let's really put Eysenck's theory under the microscope and see if we can lock down those top-tier AO3 evaluation marks. The big question is, how well does it actually hold up to scrutiny?
Honestly, this slide is basically your essay plan all ready to go. On one side, you've got the strengths. It does a great job of integrating biology and learning, and it's actually testable. But on the other side, we've got some pretty serious limitations. The research is kind of all over the place, and it makes some really questionable assumptions about personality and culture. Let's kick off with a strength. The theory's first bit of support came from Eysenck's own research. In a study back in '77, he compared male prisoners to a control group. And guess what? He found exactly what his theory predicted. The offenders scored way higher on P, E, and N.
But, and this is a big but, this is where we bring in our GRAVE evaluation tool. The V in GRAVE stands for validity.
Eysenck's study used self-report questionnaires. Now that should set off a huge red flag. You have to ask, were the prisoners answering honestly, or were they just saying what they thought the researchers wanted to hear? That's a classic case of social desirability bias, and it really puts the study's validity into question.
An even bigger challenge to the theory's reliability, though, came from a massive longitudinal study, one that followed the lives of over 400 boys, from when they were kids all the way into adulthood.
And the findings from this huge study, well, they were a direct blow to the theory. Farrington and his team found that while offenders often scored high on psychoticism and neuroticism, they were not consistently high on extroversion. This completely contradicts one of the fundamental pillars of Eysenck's whole model.
And there are even more AO3 points we can dig into. The theory has pretty poor generalizability. It was developed mainly in Western cultures. The whole idea of a fixed, stable personality is now seen as way too simplistic. And, ethically, it's pretty problematic. It really leans towards biological determinism, that dangerous idea that some people are just born bad.
So, after all that, what is the final verdict? Is Eysenck's theory just some historical relic we should forget about, or is it still actually useful for your A-level studies?
Look, here's the main takeaway. Eysenck's theory is incredibly useful as a model. It's a fantastic example of how you can integrate biology, personality, and learning all into one idea. But as a complete explanation for why people commit crimes, it's just too simple. The research doesn't always back it up, and it pretty much ignores a ton of crucial social and cognitive factors.
And that leaves us with one final and really important question for you to think about. Eysenck just assumed that the personality causes the crime. But what if it's the other way around? Could a lifestyle of crime, the constant risk-taking, the aggression, actually shape someone's personality over time? Now that is definitely something to think about.